Slides. Is that coming through okay, Michelle?
Yep, I see you're in presenter view, so all looks good.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to be presenting an overview of the ARM field campaign process, and with a particular emphasis on proposing to use the ARM mobile facilities, but we will also talk a bit about other types of campaigns. Joining me here today will be Heath Powers, who is the manager for the first and second ARM mobile facility. Nikki Hickman was not able to make it. Nikki is our assistant director for operations, but she has prepared some slides on the field campaign process. So what we're going to do today is I'll present first some high-level overview of the ARM facility for those of you who may be less familiar with it. And then Heath will do a deep dive into the ARM mobile facilities, which are the subject of a call that is open right now, and I'm guessing is the reason most of you are on this call. And then I'll finish up with the material from Nikki on the process for proposing field campaigns, with an emphasis again on proposing to use the ARM mobile facilities. So this is the one slide overview of ARM that I'd like to show. ARM, as many of you are hopefully aware, is a user facility, which means that we provide science services for the research community. In particular, we provide atmospheric measurements from primarily ground-based observatories. We've been doing this since 1992, and since 1992, our data have been fully open to the public. These measurements support a wide variety of science applications, including particularly climate research, but a variety of process studies. We're primarily organized around 6 ground-based observatories. 3 of these are fixed location. These are long-term, from 10 to 30 years. And then 3 are what we refer to as mobile facilities. These are deployed, 2 of them about a year at a time. And those are the ones we'll be primarily focusing on here today. We also episodically support these ground-based observations with aerial measurements from aircraft and tethered balloons. All of the data are processed through the standard data format, and again, are made openly available through our data center. We, in a few cases, run high-resolution models to better link our point-based measurements to large-scale models. One of our main goals is to improve large-scale models, and so these high-resolution models help to bridge the scale gaps. And the community has used these kind of models for decades to provide this kind of link. And then our science users are able to engage with the facility also through field campaigns of various sorts. Now, we consider the deployment of one of our mobile facilities as a field campaign, but also the deployment of guest instruments or modification of operations of instruments as field campaigns. And so all of our field campaigns are initiated with the same process, which we'll get to later. All of our 6 ground-based observatories have an extensive set of instruments, about 50 instruments at each site, measuring the background atmospheric state, surface energy balance, both radiation and heat fluxes, aerosol and hydrometeor profiles, near surface aerosol properties. And this map shows locations where we are or have been. These 3 blue sites in Oklahoma, Alaska, and the Azores represent our fixed location sites. We've been Azores for 10 years, Oklahoma for going on 32 years, and north of Alaska for 25. The gray circles represent mobile facility deployments for the most part. And so again, most of these represent 1-year deployments, or between about 6 months and 24 months. And so you can see this strategy of having a few fixed location sites with these deployable systems have allowed us to sample a wide variety of meteorological regimes. And again, we provide aerial measurements on an episodic basis. That is not the subject of the current call, but I will say a few more words about that in a bit. in fact, right now. Okay, so we have several types of aircraft measurements that we provide. We're currently developing a piloted aircraft, regional jet Challenger 850. This would be a replacement for the turboprop G1 aircraft that we operated for about a decade. This aircraft will provide primarily in situ measurements of cloud aerosol properties, atmospheric state, and we expect that to be flying in 2026. There'll be more information coming out about that over the next year or so. Currently, we are flying two different types of platforms. Tether balloons, we're flying in conjunction with our ground-based sites. These fly in clear air and or below cloud, provide profiles of aerosol and thermodynamic properties. And Arctic Shark is a mid-sized uncrewed aerial system that also flies in clear air, provides, again, and in situ measurements of aerosol and thermodynamic properties, as well as surface spectral information. Both of these are available through proposals also. That we do not currently have proposals open for those, but if you're interested, please do look for those in the next year. So again, all of our data from whether ground-based measurements, aerial measurements are all available to anyone, and the portal for obtaining those data is on the ARM webpage, www.arm.gov, and specifically on the data tab will take you to our data discovery tool. There you will find a faceted search to guide you to the various data products, including both direct measurements from our instruments, as well as higher order value-added products that provide measurements derived from often multiple instruments. Some of our data sets are quite large. We've recently run some high-resolution modeling simulations of deep convection in Argentina, which the total data set across the 10 case days are into multiple petabytes. We also have radars, which provide some rather large data sets. So if you have a need of processing these kind of larger data sets, we do have a computing cluster at our data center at Oak Ridge, and you can request access to that cluster for the purposes of analyzing ARM data. Okay, I think this may be my last slide before I turn it over to Heath, but if you have questions about general information about ARM, there's quite a bit of information on the ARM website, www.arm.gov. Information about field campaigns in particular is under the research tab, and I'll be saying more about that after Heath introduces you to the mobile facilities. But I also want to and I encourage you to explore the website. But if you run into information you're trying to find and can't, to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the site, and there you'll find in the footer some really valuable resources. So first of all, you will find a Ask Us button where you can submit question to ARM, and then we will route that to an appropriate party and get that answer back to you. You can also look at our organization, and whether you're trying to find an instrument specialist or somebody who develops data products or the manager of one of our sites, you can find the contact information for those individuals and reach out directly. But again, if you're not sure, you just have a question, I encourage you to pursue this. And now I think, yes, I'm going to hand it over to Heath, who's going to provide an introduction to the ARM mobile facilities. Heath, are you ready?
I think so, as long as you can hear me.
I can hear you, yes.
Good, Zoom is cooperating. Apologies, I was a little late there. We're all updated. So you can go over to the next slide here. So as Jim said, I'm Heath Powers. I'm at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and at LANL, we manage 2 of ARM's 3 mobile facilities. So what are mobile facilities? Well, they really came from a continuation of the concept of the fixed site. So ARM was making very long-term, long-term measurements from a single place at SGP, and while those long-term data sets are valuable, getting these same observations from a different environmental and climatic regimes is really important for ARM. So that was the driver to create the mobile facility. So you can move to the next slide. So currently ARM has 3 mobile facilities. They're aptly named ARM Mobile Facility 1, AMF 1, 2, and 3. The AMF 1 is, gosh, almost 20 years old now. I think its first deployment was in 2005. And it represents the manifestation of moving those fixed observatory measurements out into a mobile environment. So taking the same instruments and equipment, putting them into a mobile platform, which, as you can see, it's we utilize shipping containers for our mobile laboratories and all, and getting those on the road to different places on the globe to measure. You can click the once for the graphic. A few years after that, we continuing on the thread of learning as we go. ARM learned that these mobile measurements are great, but we're still constrained to about 30% of the globe that has land mass. The AMF2 came about to be able to put these the same observation capability onto ships, so we can get these instruments out on the surface of the ocean where we have very few observations. So the AMF2 is a marine built facility that you can integrate onto ships. However, it can also do land-based measurements as well. You can click one more time. The AMF3 is our most recent AMF facility, and this one came from our learning the value of these long-term observations from the fixed sites, the benefit of geographically diverse measurements from our mobile facilities. The AMF1 and AMF2 make relatively short deployments of about a year, plus or minus, but around a year, and being able to get to a diverse place, get to a different region, make measurements for a longer period of time. So the AMF3 is targeted more for 5 or 8 year long deployments in different places. So that's the suite of the facilities. If you move to the next slide, I'll talk about what these things bring to. So these facilities are the platform to bring a set of pretty sophisticated measurements that we also do at all of our fixed sites. And also the observing capabilities are very similar across all of ARM's different observatories here. There's a number of different areas we focus on. One is atmospheric state and radiation. I've listed the instruments here I'll go through them quickly, but I won't linger here. Radiosondes are a key part of all of the AMFs here. The frequency and the number of soundings per day sort of vary from different deployments, but that's one of the key baseline measurements. There's a suite of radiometers for both looking at the sky and looking at the surface, some spectrally resolved measurements with the ARRI and the multi-filter radiometer. And we're also looking at wind profiles with a radar profiler and a Doppler LiDAR, energy flux with NETI flux system and surface energy balance measurements, and liquid water path with microwave radiometers. We'll move to the next slide. We're also very interested in clouds and precipitation. This is captured through a couple of different LiDAR instruments, as well as a zenith pointing Ka band radar. We have an all sky imager. This is basically pictures of the sky for cloud coverage. A number of ground-based precipitation monitors as well. There are a couple of instruments that don't automatically come with the award of a facility. If you click one time, we'll highlight the graphic. For clouds and precipitation, there are 2 instruments available by special request. One is an extinction LiDAR, and ARM also has a series of scanning radars and 4 different wavelengths. These represent a pretty substantial effort by ARM to deploy and support these, so they're not a part of the baseline instruments. If they're available with a specific facility call, there are instructions in that call that tells you how you can request these special instruments. And next slide, please. Finally, ARM is very focused on aerosols. So our aerosol observing system, AOS, comes with a comprehensive suite of detailed measurements about in situ atmospheric chemistry. This is aerosol particle counts and size, and a lot of different cuts of size. We look at CCN, number of scattering and absorbing measurements for aerosols, along with trace gas measurements, ozone, CO, nitrous oxide, and a few others. Likewise, for the aerosol instruments, there are also a few special request instruments here, a speciation monitor for aerosol chemistry and SP2, and then a filter system for looking at ice nucleating particles. Next slide, please. So where have these all been? As you can see on this map, this is kind of similar to one of Jim's slides, but I like to highlight this map on the bottom left, that the mobile facilities are meeting their charge. They're getting around and really covering the globe. We've got mobile measurements from all the continents, all the continents on the globe, as well as 4 different voyages from the surface of the ocean. Big focus on the Arctic with a number of mobile deployments in the Arctic regions, or the Arctic and Antarctic regions, polar regions, including, as I mentioned, the AMF3 does these longer term measurements. It spent 8 years in the Arctic on the North Slope of Alaska, and it's currently moving to the Bankhead National Forest in Alabama. So as you can see, these facilities really do get at the goal of trying to get some observations in very climatically diverse regions of the planet. Next slide. So what is it that you get if you're awarded the use of one of these observatories? First of all, the observatory itself is the sophisticated set of measurement capability that we went over. That comes with the planning and the logistics and all of the support needed to be able to get this facility, get this observatory to the location of interest and set up to meet the scientific objectives as best we can, configure and optimizing the facility to meet those. There's a team of people who work on this 24/7. We'll have a few staff who move with the observatory to wherever it goes to actually operate the instruments and make sure that we're getting high quality data from the study. There's also a lot of effort that goes into making sure that the data from all of those instruments are readily available. So there's a team of people in the data quality office who are constantly monitoring the data streams and looking at plots of the different data to try and identify any problems. There's a lot of, pretty much every one of these instruments have a set of quick looks plots that are in near real time for most of the instruments. So you as a PI or someone on your team can also be very engaged with the data and watch the data as it's being collected. So ARM really tries to make sure there's lots of eyes on the data, because we make measurements in these mobile places for a very short amount of time, relatively speaking, and we want that to be as high quality as possible. Lastly, ARM is very invested in making sure that this is high impact science. So there's a number of products that come with this. We support guest instruments, intensive observations periods for looking at a particular feature in the weather patterns, or some other reason to focus on a particular intensive study. We also produce VAPs, value-added data products. These are something that ARM tries to deliver to the scientific community as a useful product that people can readily use to help get better science out there. Okay, next slide, please. So for this current request, as you see at the top here, pre-proposals are due a month from today, February the 9th. And this is a call for both of the facilities, both the AMF1 and AMF2. They're both going to be available in 2026. Here for about a 1-year deployment. There's some error bars around the actual time of that deployment, depending on what you need to meet the scientific objectives called out in the proposal. The dates on this, April for a domestic campaign and July for international or ship-based campaign, are our best guess at when we can actually support a deployment. These dates may change depending on the complexity, the location, and that kind of stuff. So be aware of that. If you have questions, you can reach out to me or anyone on this ARM call here to help with some guidance on that. There's a lot of information on the web. You see these 2 hyperlinks here. One is the actual facility call and a lot of information associated with that. And another link is for the instruments that are available for this. One thing I want to mention here, and you'll see this in the call, is that ARM is willing to support what we call a supplementary site. So this supplementary site would be a second location that has ARM measurements secondary to the main facility, the main instruments that we just went over. And that's meant to help support the scientific study that you're trying to do. If a second site is beneficial, these are usually pretty minor in terms of the size and the number of instruments that we can support. But if you read that and you have questions, let me know. But supplementary sites are something that we can support, a single supplementary site. And next slide. So this is just a little note on the siting. I just want people to be aware of when you're proposing the use of this facility has a footprint to be able to make a good set of measurements. So something to keep in mind. In general, whenever we do land-based deployments, we need on the order of a hectare as a space for making ideal measurements. Now, there's a lot of variability in that. This photo on the right is on a spit of land in Norway that's a little less than an acre, so we can fit on that. But think in terms of this is an observatory with pretty special requirements. We have mobile laboratories that are all these containers that you see here. We have a lot of instruments, and each one of these instruments, for the most part, or a lot of the instruments need an unobstructed view of the horizon. It needs a big open area to make the best measurements it can. So keep that in mind. While it's always nice whenever you propose the use of one of these observatories, if you have a specific location in mind, that's ideal. However, we can also help find an appropriate location given the constraints in the proposal of where you want to do the measurements and all. But any help and any thought that you can put in ahead of time in the proposal only helps us do a better job in supporting that deployment on this. And I think that's all.
Thanks, Heath. And I thought maybe I would just pause here, since Heath and I have gone through what the facility is and what the mobile facilities are. Are there any questions about any of that content before I move on to the process for proposing to access these facilities? Okay, so not seeing anything, I will go ahead and we can have time for discussions again. But again, as I'm going along here with the process, don't hesitate to raise a question if something is not clear. So
I know Nikki's not here. I'm happy to give Nikki's part, or are you covering that?
I was planning to do that, Heath.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we talked yesterday, so I will do my best. So first thing, wanted to call your attention to, so if you are an ARM user, you already have taken care of this, but to submit a proposal for an ARM field campaign, you will first have to create a user account. So this will get you access to the field campaign process. It will also get you access to download the data, so something you should be doing. But you will need this to submit a request. So to get to that, again, going to that footer of any of the ARM site web pages, you will see on the lower left here, create an account. So just select that and get a little bit of information about who you are, where you are. And as a user facility, we need to track who is engaging with the facilities. And so just set that up, and then you'll be good to go to submit your request. And I think that I can skip over this part since we talked about the footer, but there's a lot of information here to learn about the facilities and how to reach out to us with questions. So please do peruse this area as well as the rest of the website. Okay, so now if you're ready to submit a field campaign and be, again, primarily focused here on proposing to use a mobile facility, but we'll also look at other types of campaigns, and I'll elaborate that in a minute. But you want to go to the research campaign page. So you go to the research tab into campaigns that will bring up this site or this page, and this has a lot of information about the documentation behind this and the process. And on the bottom here, there's a step-by-step process of what you need to do to prepare for, submit, execute, and then close out a field campaign. So again, those steps. So there are instructions on the process, documentation on how to do that. And let's see. Going to look initially on this page, you will see several types of campaigns listed. Small campaigns, I will say a few words about that. The annual call, which probably most of you are here for. And this is actually an older screenshot of this page, but there's a separate type of call for tether balloons and uncrewed aerial systems. But for what we're calling here small campaigns, these are campaigns that do not involve the deployment of a mobile facility or an aircraft and are below a certain dollar amount. Their threshold is about $300,000 for the deployment. I do want to say a few words about these campaigns because even if you're here to propose to use a mobile facility, there's a fair chance that along the way, you're going to want to, you or one of your collaborators may want to have a small field campaign in conjunction with that larger campaign. If, to the extent possible, if you can tell us about that ahead of time in your main proposal, that would be great. But if something comes up, a year from now or after your campaign has been approved, you can use this process to request, say, the deployment of a guest instrument at that facility. Let's see. So first thing I want to point you to is this field campaign guidelines document, which is linked on the main research campaign page. This has information about the different types of calls, the small campaign, the annual call. It has information about what is expected of the PI of successful campaigns. It talks about the structure of the proposals. So a lot of information that you will need to be successful with your field campaign. Also highlighted here is a timeline for proposing to submit a campaign. So we've certainly had occasions in the past where somebody wanted to execute a campaign, say the next week. That is not possible. We need some advance warning to evaluate, is the campaign supportable from our perspective. So this calendar that's linked here will give guidelines for how to judge how far in advance you should submit a request. There are very specific guidelines for the mobile facility call. Keith touched on that, and I'll get back to that again. But for small campaigns, there's guidance here. Okay, so once you are ready to actually submit the campaign, and you go to propose, you will be taken to this form, which has, this is basically all field campaigns start in this same way. You're asked to submit what we call a pre-proposal. This is similar to what you might find in other programs, a letter of intent. So this is providing a small amount of information about who you are, what you want to accomplish, what types of resources you need from us. It's all in a structured format. It all amounts to typically a page or a few pages of information. And so we use this to judge, is this supportable? And in the case of the annual call for mobile facilities, we use this to judge whether we want to go back and request a full proposal. So this is the first step, and this is what is due by February 9th that Heath mentioned earlier. Okay, so now let's go to from the small campaign to the annual facility call. So that is linked again from that main field campaign page. There will be a link to the annual call that will take you to the annual facility call page. Now, this now describes the parameters of the current annual facility call, including deadlines, what is included, what is not included. So down here, you'll see, for example, the timeline that, so the call we're on right now, the February 9 deadline for pre-proposals, feedback on whether we encourage a full proposal, and then the deadline for those full proposals. You'll also find here a link to the instrument list. Heath showed slides that had some information about that, but there's a detailed list of what instruments are included or are included by special request through this website. That link that was showed earlier is from this web page. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so what I wanted to highlight here now, so let's say you have now submitted a proposal. Let's go back to these echelons. I want to sort of describe what is going to happen next. So first of all, your proposal will be reviewed by a panel of peers. That will happen over the summer. You will then be, the winner will be notified of the award of the campaign. At that point, a team from ARM, including Heath and several of us, the management team, will meet with the winning team or teams to describe what we will be providing, to learn more about what your science goals are, to make sure we're all on the same page, to begin the process of developing a plan for the implementation of that campaign. And then we will work with the winning PI over the subsequent months until we're ready to deploy. We will then execute the campaign. Heath and his team will execute that campaign. Just going back again to the small campaigns again, in the case of a small field campaign. So if you're proposing to deploy an instrument, say at one of our fixed location sites or at one of these mobile facilities, it would be a little bit less formal, but you would be engaging in that case most likely with the manager of the facility. So in case of the mobile facilities, that would be Heath, and there would be other leads for our sites in Oklahoma, Alaska, and then Heath again for the Azores. And then once the campaign is concluded, there are one other thing I want to mention. For the winning proposal for a mobile facility, there is an expectation that a science plan will be provided. This helps the community know and us and ARM know what the science goals are for the campaign, what the scope of the campaign is. That is also expected, a science plan for some larger field campaigns. For a simple small field campaign involving a guest instrument, we do not expect a science plan. once the campaign is completed, there are certain expectations of the PI, and those are outlined in the call for proposals, but just say a few words about that here. So first of all, we expect a final report about the campaign. So we want to know what was accomplished, what was learned, what went well, what didn't go well. Let us know that feedback. And then additionally, if there is non-armed data. So if as part of the campaign, you deployed a special instrument, or there were some special data products associated with this process, then that would be, we expect that to be delivered within 6 months of the completion of that campaign. The final report is also due 6 months following the completion of the campaign. And then just a reminder, we have data policies. Again, all of our data are completely open, but as a user facility, we are judged in part by how our data are being used and the science impact we're having. So we very much appreciate you acknowledging the use of ARM data, the use of ARM campaigns, and there's guidelines on how to do that on the campaign page as well as on data pages. And so this is, I think, my last slide, just a reminder that there is a great deal of information out there on the campaign website. One thing that I forgot to mention, but Nikki's got a note here. So a few years ago, we developed a new capability that we call a field campaign notebook that is available for any mobile facility deployment. And this is a website which includes quick looks. Heath mentioned that there are quick looks available. Those are posted to this field campaign page. There's opportunity to have maps, notes about the campaign. So this is something that our PIs had requested for a number of years, but we think is a great addition to these deployments. There was a video done, story done a few years ago on what does it take to be successful, and this was done by some of our successful PIs. So encourage you to check out that story. This is the email address that to our administrator for field campaign processes. So if you've got specific questions about that process, that is a resource, but also encourage you to reach out to Heath. And then if there are specific questions, this is a link, again, from that Ask Us area at the bottom of the page. I think that's all that I have. And so I will stop sharing, but hope that there will be some questions.
We did have a question in the chat, Jim, about a clarification on the role of the 9 laboratories and how to prioritize research, which I did put a comment in the chat that the priority research is of the DOE BER program, not of the 9 laboratories. But if you want to expand on that, that would be great.
So the question is, so 9 laboratories, I can talk about the role of those, but then the prioritization, how do those, what is the actual question?
It may be helpful if, is it okay if I share my screen here? I think just the contacts for the different observatories may answer this here. So I'll just do a quick screen share if I can figure it out on Zoom. Let's see.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I see the question now. So yes, so 9 laboratories, not agencies, that are involved with ARM, and that's
so
down.
yeah, if you look at the ARM homepage, you hover over capabilities, you'll see atmospheric observatories. This gives a list of the different types of observatories ARM supports. And if you, in this case, you can click on ARM mobile facility. Over on the right, there's contacts here.
Could you go down to the org the high level org down at the bottom there, Heath. Bottom,
Yes.
yeah.
So this gives sort of the specific context for each one of these facilities. This, Janet, this may not be exactly what you're asking, but this is a good resource to route you to the right person for specific, contacts for the different facilities. So there's also organization here, and I'll click on
Yeah,
that.
so what, so ARM is not itself primarily a research organization. We provide measurements to the community to support research. We do some research within the facility, particularly in the development of new data products for the analysis of some data products, but primarily we are delivering data. And so the 9 laboratories, and those are listed along the bottom of the page here, what those 9 laboratories are, each have specific functions in delivering that mission. So for example, Heath is at Los Alamos, and they operate the mobile facilities 1 and 2, as well as the fixed site location in the Azores. So Oak Ridge operates our data center. I am at Pacific Northwest, where we have the technical coordination office and operate the aircraft. Each laboratory has a function or set of functions that all contribute together to operate the facility and deliver data to our users. So it's highly integrated. We all work together to support that mission. So there's not a sense of research priorities. We're sort of an overall machine that works together to deliver data to you. Hopefully that answers the question. Shanu, see a hand raised.
Yes, I have a question. Maybe you can answer this, or maybe you can direct me to someone else. So I'm a little bit confused with funding. So let's say I want to propose a small campaign in Bankhead National Forest. Do I have the right proposal for this campaign proposal, as well as ASR science proposal?
Yes, that's an excellent question, and one which we should have a boilerplate answer for, because it's a common question that comes up. So yes, that you would. So ARM does not typically provide funding, and Sally, I see is on the call, may want to elaborate on this, but we primarily are providing measurements to do research. With the measurements, you would need to provide a separate research proposal to ASR or another program. We have users from multiple agencies and from countries around the world. So research funding can come from any sources, but for DOE research, those funds would come from ASR.
And I have one more question.
Sure.
So in this small campaign, if I wanted to use a tether balloon system, TBS, do I have to write 2 proposals? One is a campaign proposal, one is a TBS proposal, or TBS proposal and the campaign proposal can put together?
So those will need to be separate proposals. We do not currently have. So the way we run, we tried combining them the last cycle, and that was a little bit confusing. So we're not doing that this time. You can certainly identify that that's something of interest, and that will help signal to us that that's something you're interested in. But what we do each year, and we've kind of grown into this over the last few years, is that we develop a list of target locations for the tether balloon a year in advance. So right now we have a call, let's see, it just opened actually for the tether balloon for fiscal 2025. And so that is for Southern Great Plains, our Baltimore deployment called the Courage Campaign, and the Bankhead National Forest, our new AMF3 deployment. So those are the 3 locations that are being considered for FY 2025. So what could happen, for example, is if when we accept a new location for 2026, if we believe that that this is a location that would benefit from Tether Balloon, we could include that in next year's call for 2026. And that would be a separate call next year. It is a shorter, simpler call, so if that's any solace for that process, but we do ask those would be separate processes.
Thank you. Can I have one more very quick question?
Of course.
When will be the, let's say if I submit this cycle, February 9th, pre-proposal deadline, when will be the earliest date I can start the campaign?
So that would be April, subject to the caveats that he's put out there, April 26th for a domestic campaign. And I believe we said July of 26 for something that's international or marine based. And as he said, that is our best estimate right now. As we get into the details, that could shift by a few months one way or another as we learn about complexities, but that's what we expect the earliest would be for these 2026. And those dates, I believe, are on the annual call page.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Jim, we had a question from Xiaoqing. Is there a page limit for pre-proposals, and what level of detail is required?
There's not a page limit for pre-proposals. So as I said, so that's guided by a form, and we're really just trying to understand at the pre-proposal stage, is this relevant to DOE? Does it seem logistically feasible? Are there any concerns you would have about that? You're not making the full case for approval at that stage. We're just trying to understand, is this something that should go forward to the more detailed proposal? So you should be able to do that in a couple of pages. But there is not a limit.
And then Jim, Janet also had a follow-up question. As a proposal agent, do the people proposing the project, are they the ones responsible for permitting?
No.
For example, if I want an atmospheric research on a protected land, do we have to be a cooperating agency for Fish and Wildlife?
No. So Heath and his team at Los Alamos will handle permitting. And so just as an example, we doing our newest deployment right now is in the Bankhead National Forest in Alabama. Argonne National Lab is leading that effort, and they've done a lot of work with the Forest Service and others to get the necessary permitting for that location. I see Heath popped on again, so he want to comment on what work they do and what they look for from the PI team as part of that process.
Yeah, I mean, you covered it. So part of what you get with the award of the facility is staff at one of the national laboratories for AMF1, AMF2. It'll be me at Los Alamos. We take care of the permitting, compliance, NEPA reviews, all of that stuff. So we'll handle all that. That said, any legwork that you may have done in preparation for the proposal is great. If you've identified a site on, state game and fish property, and someone there said, "Yeah, we'd love to host the facility here," that helps with the process to have some contacts and something established and a location potentially identified. But the actual compliance will be handled through one of the national labs.
Thank you, Heath. One more question, Jim, since we did speak a little bit about the TPS open proposal call. We have a question. What is the difference between the ARM TBS proposal call and the EMSL ARM FICUS call?
Thank you, Michelle. So the the difference is access to the EMSL specific instruments and the associated processing. So if you go to the Tether Balloon System webpage, if we have a minute, I can show you where that is. Any of the ARM baseline, so-called ARM baseline instruments would be accessed through the standard ARM call. If you want access to the EMSL instruments, and that would include these particle sampling, filter-based particle sampling instruments, the STAC, the TBAC, and so the STAC is a size resolved instrument, TBAC is a bulk aerosol instrument, and then the newest one, I'm blanking on the name of the newest one, but I believe it provides information about organic chemistry. Those would be, if you want one of those, that would be access to the FICUS call with EMSL. And then those samples would be analyzed at EMSL. And so this is something relatively new we've implemented, so you can access both the ARM facility, that is the Tether Balloon and the ARM instruments, and the EMSL facility, that is their chemical analysis capabilities through a single request. So that's the distinction, is those EMSL instruments and analysis or not. And actually, the Sandia team who runs the Tether Balloon is putting together a nice flow chart to help guide, because we know this is a bit of a complicated landscape to navigate, that we hope to include with the guidelines document.
We might also mention too that the Sandia team is putting together a webinar next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Michelle will drop in the chat for signups. So they're going to talk about TBS data and how to use ARM TBS data. And I'm sure there'll be other conversations about FICUS in that webinar.
I'm Shanko. I have one more question for the value added product. I forgot the name. Yeah, value added data product. Yes.
Mhm.
So for instance, in that case, I bring my own instrument, so guest instrumentation, and I will bring some data that AMF doesn't provide. That should also go through this campaign proposal, right?
Yes, so it would be very beneficial to us if you could describe any instruments you plan to deploy as part of that, so that Heath and his team knows what support will be required or expected. And then our expectation is that those data would be made available through the ARM webpage along with everything else. But yes, please do include a description of those instruments as part of your proposal.
So Heath is also responsible for AMF3?
Oh, are we talking about Are we talking about the Bankhead site or the?
Yes.
Okay, so no, so if you want to deploy an instrument to AMF3 at the Bankhead, you would use the same field campaign pre-proposal that we've been talking about. That would be analyzed by or assessed by the AMF3 team, who again is led by Argonne. That's transparent to you, at least initially. So you just need to put in the pre-proposal request to deploy those instruments. And then I'm sure you would be contacted by the site team with any questions about that.
So that will be Nikki.
Yes, Nikki and Mike Ritchie.
Thank you. Thank you
You're
so much.
So Jim, did you see the comment from Xiaoshang?
I did.
About funding?
So I think I'm going to, I will say that there have been occasions recently where there has been some support provided for logistics activities in preparation for the campaign, but thank you, Sally, for hopping on, and perhaps you can comment on your plans there.
Yeah, so as a user facility, ARM doesn't provide research funding really for the campaigns. As Jim mentioned earlier, that's expected to be provided by either another DOE research program or another agency research program. However, so if you are already funded by DOE, especially at a national lab, we encourage you to talk to your funding program manager about any campaigns before you propose them. But we do recognize that in some cases, because of the sort of magnitude of the effort required to engage in an ARM mobile facility campaign, that PIs might not have, and the timing, since the campaigns are a couple of years out, the PIs might not have research funding at this time. And so we can consider small amounts of funding on an individual basis. So you should contact me about that.
Sally.
Xiaosheng says thanks, and I thank you, Sally.
Are there any other questions?
Just going once. We are at the top of the hour.
So, oh yeah, so
Oh.
Michelle was asking that please fill out a short survey to let us know how this went, or if there's other information that would have been useful. And please do make use of the Ask Us or other feedback mechanisms if you do have questions after the fact. But thank you everyone for coming out and showing your interest in this process.